السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. We have a few questions today related to this theme of unanswered questions. Questions people are often afraid to ask or uncomfortable asking. So there's a question that why are some things haram and others not? Some of it seems rather random. The question is, for example, what's so bad about pork that it's impermissible, right? That if it's unhealthy, then they can think of a lot of other food that's unhealthy. And why isn't biryani haram? Because eating a lot of biryani is unhealthy. And I'm no great fan of biryani, though a good biryani once in a while can hit the spot. But why are certain things haram? Right? In the lawgiver, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is wise and just and merciful. And all the rulings of the Sharia, of divine guidance, manifest the wisdom, justice, and mercy of the all-wise, all-just, and all-merciful perfectly, such that were reality to be shown to us, we would be humbled by that reality and not change a single thing in reality. So, the basis is that the rulings of the Sharia, the rulings of divine guidance, are there to benefit us in this life and in the next. But that benefit can sometimes be obvious and sometimes can be not so obvious. Sometimes the benefit is both worldly, it's a means to some worldly good, but it's always a means to next worldly good. So, for example, getting up in the middle of the night which has next worldly benefit, but especially in certain times of the year, in certain places, it can be a significant challenge to one's sleep patterns, to getting enough sleep, to balance sleep and work, and many professionals struggle with that. Where's the benefit in that? In worldly terms. Now, the benefit may be subtle, by acquiring discipline, etc. And if we were to ponder and learn, we would discern the worldly benefit. But there's always next worldly benefit in all rulings, because ultimately it's an act of submission to Allah and there's eternal reward. Much of the Sharia, especially in the rulings outside devotion, the rulings have discernible reason behind it. Why is it prohibited to backbite someone, to slander someone, to mock someone? Why are we called upon to give in charity? These are all rulings of discernible benefit, or they prevent discernible harm. This is one category of ruling. It's called ma'qulul ma'na, rulings of discernible meaning. But there's other rulings whose basis is that it's ta'abbud. It is rulings related to submitting to the command of God, knowing that this has eternal reward. And though different reasons and wisdoms are given about, for example, the prohibition of pork, but can you make a scientific case that eating a little pork is significantly worse than eating a lot of steak? Eating a big chunk of steak is not haram. What makes a little bit of pork impermissible, but a large slice of fatty steak permissible? Is that these are rulings that are limits laid down as an expression of our slavehood and Allah's lordship. And by refraining of some of the things that we would want in this life, we express our gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our slavehood to Allah, and our gratitude, and our certitude in Allah's eternal promise. Just like in our acts of devotion. Why do we prostrate twice? There's no discernible reason for it. It is related to being servants of God. This is the command of God. قَالُوا سَمِعْنَا وَأَطَعْنَا. They say, we hear and we obey. But if we act on those commands, we find undeniable benefits. We find undeniable benefits of even in this life, of the increase of faith, of the increase of our mindfulness of God. Right? So, you were watching some show online that was talking about some fancy dish made out of pork. And then you're walking down the street having a terrible day, and you saw this place that has pulled pork sandwiches, and you're really tempted, and it even smelled good to you. But at that time, when you remember God and you refrain from that sandwich that you got tempted by, that has worldly benefit. Not material, tangible benefit, not the fulfillment of your desire, but the increase in faith and the strengthening of your mindfulness of God, of your taqwa, which benefits you in so many other aspects of your life. So none of it is random. All of it has wisdom, has justice, has mercy. A key to understanding the wisdom, justice, mercy, beauty, and excellence in the teachings of our religion is to learn. Is to learn that religion. How? Seek beneficial knowledge. Right? And that's what the courses at Seekers are designed to try to provide beneficial knowledge. There's a question that what is the best way to draw close to Allah? This is a second question. What is the best way to draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The best way to draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to make a commitment that I am a servant of God, I want to seek the pleasure of Allah. And then learn your religion so you can know what is the right of Allah upon you, and then strive your best to fulfill that right with excellence. And that's why they say a true servant of God is a person of religious understanding who acts upon their knowledge, and then Allah grants them knowledge of what they knew not, and of the realities of faith. So seek knowledge, act upon it with sincerity, with consistency, and do good with it in your life, in your devotion. Strive to become a person of benefit. And that's find a way of being of service to others, either in your free time or choose a line of work where you are serving people and genuinely benefiting them. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for facilitation and success. Someone asked a question that how can I make my actions sincere to Allah? I struggle with sincerity. I struggle with sincerity. Be grateful to Allah that you realize that you struggle with sincerity. Why? Because the ulama tell us that no one but the sincere struggle with sincerity. Right? Because the insincere don't care about sincerity. The very fact that you worry about sincerity is a sign that you have the roots of sincerity in your heart. You have to cultivate them. How do you do that? There's a beautiful quote of one of the great Imams of the early Muslims, Dhunnun al-Misri, rahimahullah, who said, اعلموا أنه لا يصفو لعامل عمل إلا بإخراج الخلق من القلب في عمله وهو الإخلاص. Know well that a person doing works for the sake of Allah will not make their actions pure for the sake of Allah until they take out creation from their heart in those actions. And that is sincerity. What is sincerity? Sincerity is to take out creation from the actions that you do for the sake of Allah. So work on your intention before you do things. Don't do things. And very often we do things just because. Right? And sometimes it happens. We were doing it. Why are you doing it? Because I have to. You're doing a great work. Right? And sometimes, like a student of knowledge is studying a book and they're dragging theirs. Why are you doing it? Because my teacher said to study it. Well, since you are doing it, might as well do it for Allah. Don't be a fool. Why miss out on the reward? Right? You show up to the food bank and you're working. So why? Why are you doing this? Because I committed to do it on Saturdays, and you're kind of like huffing and puffing and picking up the boxes and like. No. Always renew your intentions and leave out consideration for people. Don't do things for the sake of people. Don't improve things for the sake of people. Do them for the sake of Allah alone. There are signs of this. Dhunnun al-Masri explains, فَمَنْ أَخْلَصَ لِلَّهِ لَمْ يَرْجُوا غَيْرَ اللَّهِ. Whoever acts sincerely for Allah hopes only from Allah. So he says, فَكُن. So be this way. وَكُنْ عَلَى عِلْمٍ أَنَّهُ لَا قَبُولَ لِعَمَلٍ يُرَادُ بِهِ غَيْرُ اللَّهِ. Says, and be certain that there is no acceptance for actions done for the sake of other than Allah. Your works of devotion, your seeking of knowledge, your religious acts of service, if you do it for other than Allah, there is no reason for Allah to accept them. فمن أراد طريق التجريد إلى الإخلاص فلا يدخلن في إرادته أحد سوى الله تعالى. So whoever seeks the path of directing themselves to the attainment of sincerity, do not ever allow to enter into your intention any one or any goal besides Allah Himself. So he says, فَشَمِّرْ عَنْ سَاقِقْ. So he says, so exert yourself. وَاحْذَرْ حَذَرَ الرَّجُلِ أَنْ يَدْخُلَ فِي الْعَظَمَ لِلَّهِ تَعْظِيمَ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ. And be fearful with the fearfulness of one who does not want to present before the greatness of God the affirmation of greatness for any other. Because when you're acting for the sake of Allah, you're in the presence of the king. In the presence of the king, who do you pay attention to? Right? You go and stand before the king and you're checking your smartphone. So the king's saying, so what do you want? Say, So you don't allow consideration for other than Allah to enter into your works. And this is the pitfall, right, of many who engage in worship. That after a while they're known as religious, they're known as this. So they keep that consideration in mind. One of the keys to avoid that is pray the same way, conduct yourself the same way in private as you do in public. How? Follow the sunnah privately and publicly. But likewise in your seeking of knowledge. Right? Beware of seeking recognition, throwing things. Oh, I met Shaykh so-and-so when I was on Umrah and mashallah, Allah blessed us to get ijazah from him. Why did you say that? What's in it for Allah? Right? What's in it for Allah? So, well, gratitude. You could be grateful. So you could say between you and Allah, oh Allah, thank you that you facilitated me to meet Shaykh so-and-so. Right? It's very easy to let insincere motives creep in to your knowledge, to your service in other areas. Right? He says, وَاجْعَلِ الْغَالِبَ عَلَى قَلْبِكَ ذَلِكَ وَقَدْ صَفَى قَلْبُكَ بِالْإِخْلَاصِ. Says, and make this meaning predominate in your heart, and then you will have attained sincerity. That if what predominates in your heart is that you actively do things for the sake of Allah alone, then you'll be of the sincere. Then you will be of the sincere. Dhunun al-Masri said, I heard some of the scholars say that ما أخلص العبد لله إلا أحب أن يكون في جب لا يعرف. That if a servant becomes sincere in their actions for Allah, they would wish to be in a well, to live in a well unknown by people. So the only time one does something publicly is when there's clear consideration of benefit that one is pursuing for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? That should be the asl. That one's good deeds, one doesn't disclose them. If one is doing something publicly, you're posting a hadith. Why are you posting a hadith? Well, my friends are posting hadiths. What's in it for Allah? So, oh, well, of course I'm doing it for Allah. No. Where is Allah in your motivation? The intention comes first. Right? And that's why Dhunun al-Masri also said that اُعْبُدُ اللَّهَ بِالْإِخْلَاصِ مِنَ الصِّدْقِ. Be devoted to Allah with sincerity arising from trueness, meaning from trueness to Allah. And if you do so, Allah will make you attain pure virtue. خَالِصًا مِنَ الْبِرِّ. So you attain sincerity by continually renewing your intention. Right? Because if you don't struggle continually to renew your intention, you're in danger. He also said, Dhunun al-Masri, اعلموا أن من أراد أن يلقى العدو بغير سلاح خفت أن لا يسلم من القتل. He said that know well that if someone wants to meet their enemy without their weapon, I fear that they'll be killed. Likewise, what is the weapon of the believer? It is their sincerity to Allah. I'm doing it purely for the sake of Allah. If you don't do it that way, it's like entering into battle without a weapon. You're in danger of getting slaughtered. Right? We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us sincerity and things that help sincerity is to remain connected with beneficial knowledge. When you learn, focus on striving to act upon it. What facilitates sincerity is to keep company of the sincere. Have exemplars that you look up to. Not just in how much they know, etc., but in their character. In their character. Right? And always read about the prophets and the beloved Messenger ﷺ himself. Read about the stories of the righteous and the learned. Visit the living exemplars. See their sincerity, their humility, their character. Right? That's one of the ways that we are inspired, that we can be inspired to strive to have the meanings of those who are sincere and true to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah tells us this in the Quran. Kunu ma'as sadiqeen. O you who believe, be mindful of Allah and be with those who are true to God. Why? Because being with them, and they're the exemplars of those who are true to God, and life companions who are sincere. Life companions who are sincere. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us sincerity. And of course you ask Allah, anything you want of virtue, raise your hands and ask Allah for it. And then learn how to acquire it. Okay? And we have many courses on the science of Islamic spirituality, which is a science of how one cultivates sincerity. And one is sincere to God outwardly and inwardly. We ask Allah for facilitation. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.